Whoa.
Clearing up your sinuses before we get started?
Did you hear that?
Yeah, geez Louise, I'm going to wipe my face off.
Oh, man. Let's start again.
Yeah,
welcome, buddy.
Thank you, man. Welcome to you.
Welcome to the Crushing Iron podcast. The podcast that some have called Refreshingly Nonchalant.
Refreshingly So it's kind of like water.
Yeah.
We're kind of like water. We're super refreshing, yet simple and free.
And natural. And hydrating.
Yeah, and clear and transparent.
Oh, the podcast's like water.
Yeah, water or vodka. Whichever one you think we need to be, we can be that for you.
Oh, man, it's holiday season for all those vodka drinkers.
This is a tough part of these weeks. We've been saying it, and it still holds true. But this is the season of the funk. It is. Training is hard, motivation is down, eating is less than stellar. Drinking usually follows that with less than stellar. It is. It's probably the toughest 6 to 8 week span, at least for me as a coach.
As a coach, yeah.
Yeah, it's super hard. And I don't mean hard as in like it's really difficult for me, but I always have to take a step back and look at things differently and recognize what time of the year it is. And, because motivation is really easy to find later on in the year. And so it's about, right now it's about, pushing different buttons, but it's also, finding out where certain buttons may or may not lie. And this is usually the time of year where harder conversations have to kind of transpire, but also it's also the time of year to be patient. It's
as a coach.
As a coach, and understand that bad days are going to be bad days. As long as they don't become patterns, then that's okay. And you don't want to drill into your athletes. Because we have quite a few athletes, and a lot of them are struggling, right now, and that's not anything. That's not a negative towards them. It's not a negative towards me or us. It's just that time of year. It's like everything you like. It's bad food, it's office parties, it's traveling, it's family, it's not much sunlight, it's training indoors alone. It's just like everything comes to a screeching halt. And sometimes this year it's literally just about treading water.
Yeah.
Like, just let me get through it, and let me get through it unscathed. And and I think a lot of athletes struggle, and I think I have a lot of athletes struggling with this right now, is that they go through these crazy focused and committed weeks and months where they're just they're so in the zone that it's just insane. And so they beat themselves up, and and still this is never an issue for me, but I still have athletes, and whether old or new, that ask me for not ask me for forgiveness, but apologize. I'm sorry, I'm just not gonna. I'm you don't have to be sorry to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's you don't need to ask me for forgiveness. You need to ask you for forgiveness. Take it easy on yourself. You don't need to be decommitted, but you also need to understand and be flexible with when and why that commitment needs to happen. And if you have some bad days, you have bad days, but it's recognizing them and it's kind of like leaning against a locked door. It's eventually going to open and you're going to bust through. But if you just turn around and walk away and give up, you'll never know when that door is going to open again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of how commitment is right now, and motivation. When it's super hard to come by, it's going to pass. And it's recognizing that it's there, but it's also listen, here's the biggest mistake. is a lot of athletes look back and think, yeah, but like 3 months ago I was churning out like 15, 16, 17-hour weeks and I was so consistent. And I was like, well, yeah, there weren't any holidays. You weren't traveling. You had a big race. The sun was out till 8 p.m. The weather was nice and sunny. And why wouldn't you want to do that stuff? You know, but what you need to do is you need to look back to this time last year. So where were you November, December, January of last year? And if you're ahead of where you were then, and you're still trying to do workouts now, because a lot of these athletes now are at least they're even just attempting to stay in the season. Whereas last year, they didn't. You know, and that's where a lot of the athletes I have are, because we work with, 90% of our athletes we work with on a year-round basis, 12 months out of the year. And so if they're new to that, they used to just like, oh, I'm just gonna, put the bike in the garage, put the run shoes up, and I'm just gonna bask in my Ironman or 70.3 glory for like 90 days. And then the next thing you know, they wake up January 1st and like, oh shit. Mm. So it's really about treading water, and that's okay. You don't have to swim and sprint, but we sure as hell don't want you to drown. That is definitely a message for all of the athletes that are listening to this podcast, but especially for the ones that I'm working with right now that are, beating themselves up a little bit or looking for, extra motivation. Like, it's okay. We had a podcast about it a few weeks ago. It's okay to be in a rut or a funk. As long as you're still leaning on that door, you're still on the front steps, then give yourself a pat on the damn back. Just don't walk away. Just don't walk away.
It's sort of, it's a natural cycle of life, man. Nature is at play here. Like you said, there's less daylight. It's getting colder. It's almost like forced on you to not go all out all year, and there's something about that. It's kind of like when you said that door analogy, I was thinking about the running back who has to face 9 or 10 men in the box, and they can't find any open holes, but they keep plugging. They keep like running into the back of their own line, and they keep looking for that little gap and just kind of stay in the game, and eventually something's going to open up, and you gotta step back, man. That's what we talk about, like, just do something. Like right now is a good time. It's a very difficult time to lose weight because it's that natural nature cycle where, that hibernation kind of, life cycle, and you're probably eating a ton more, and, that's just natural, I think, too, when it gets cold and what have you. But, maybe if it's just something that's like one of the best things I've always heard about that is really good for sort of helping you shed weight is getting up in the morning on an empty stomach and going for like an hour walk, for example. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that. That's what you talk about treading water. It's like you're hanging around, right? You're not just shelving it all and laying back on the couch and watching 18 football games in a row every day for the next 3 weeks, but you're doing something. And that's what I try to do. I'm really, I've been in this yoga thing, and I can tell that my body's just, I'm committed, but my body is nowhere near like flexible and resilient right now or whatever. But I'm just I'm going to class, and after class I went and bought, I'm getting on my juicing roll again, and I bought a bunch of vegetables, and I I got back here, and I was like, we were 20 minutes from the podcast, and I was looking at my vegetables, and I was looking at that coffee maker, and it was like, I knew I should have went with the vegetables, but I just couldn't. I just couldn't quite yet. But I'm not going to, beat myself up. I'm just like, all right, well, I just did yoga, and I've got my vegetables, and I'll be getting on those a little later today. And you just kind of keep working things in. And to me, that's treading water too, and it's
what's that? It's that slow burn that we talk about all the time. And I was having a conversation with an athlete earlier today, and you bring up before I get too much into the slow burn, but there was an analogy that not analogy, but a quote my father-in-law was we were talking about a couple weeks ago during Thanksgiving about football, and you know how Nick Saban is in his press conferences. He's very Bill Belichick, very ornery. But and he said, "Hey, is it okay for you to be, tied or down at halftime, or barely up?" And he said yes. He said because the purpose of the first half is to make you not want to play us in the second half.
Oh, nice.
And that's also how I kind of see this time of year. Like, it's like for me, and I think for a lot of athletes, they need to be okay with like really making, like, it's okay to make just small gains. Or it's more than okay to just stay as fit as you are. It's like we gain all this new fitness in the later part of the year, and then all of a sudden it gets cold and we feel like it just vanished.
It's weird.
I'm like yes, like, do you want to? It's like resting on your laurels on two different spectrums. It's like you don't want to take 90 days off and just do nothing and become like a shell of your peak season self. But you also don't need to forget that, I don't know, like less than like 6 weeks ago, you were out on the Ironman course killing it. Like, you're going to lose things here and there, but it's like it hasn't totally vanished. And you don't have to be, and this is what I was talking about, like the slow burn is like, you don't have to be the athlete that's either totally disengaged and just so unmotivated and so out and so bleh, and you don't have to be the one that's like, oh, hell yeah, let's just go crush it this week. Like, it's okay to be in the middle. Like, it's okay to be gray. You don't have to be black or white. It's just it's okay to be gray right now. It's okay to just keep inching your way forward centimeter by centimeter, or just holding your ground. Just hold your ground right now. Put the shovel away. You don't need to get on top of a bigger pile, and you don't need to dig yourself a hole. Just hold your ground and be okay with that. And if you make little gains, great. If you make a few gains one day and then take a step back the next day, that's okay too. Just don't don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah, it's having confidence in where you are.
It is.
And you have that long-term plan in mind. And I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like you're not there. Mm-hmm. You're right here.
Yep.
So be okay with that. And yeah, take a step forward, just a little one. I don't know.
Yeah, it really is. It's about holding your ground, and staying on the doorstep, holding your ground. And when the time is right, it'll all click. Mm-hmm. But recognizing it and just kind of being not okay with it, but accepting it is a big deal. Mm-hmm. Because at least you're just not like, oh, I'm just going to totally walk away and I'll just start over in a few months. Because it can be incredibly frustrating to try to get back on the horse this time of year and then fall off, and do that back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, and I would just say
eventually you're just gonna leave the horse in the stable and just say screw it.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things about this holiday, let's face it, is the eating piece. Mm-hmm. I just went through Thanksgiving and I completely bombed on that because you know that feeling. It's that I felt like I was full for like 3 days, and that alone can really distort your mental capacities, and it really screws up the way you feel about yourself. And just because you had like a bunch of food doesn't mean, like you said, you lost all your fitness or whatever, but it feels like it. And it's easy to start snowballing into this like woe is me piece. And you get, between the holiday parties and 2 or 3 different visits on Christmas, and you're going to probably feel that, and it's going to be that sloth feeling. So as I go into this, my goal probably is just to not eat so much. It's pretty simple. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to do because there's all the psychological factors about you're at home, even though not all of us have like the smoothest family life, and sometimes that's a stressful visit for people. And you go to food. I think that's a super
underrated part of this whole story. Is that like family dynamics / traveling, like that just puts like in a crazy amount of stress onto people. And like sometimes it just brings up just straight up difficult, like it just becomes plain difficult for people to deal with.
It's that anxiety, at the bone level that you just it's always sort of nagging. And you know how it is. It's like, I mean, that's the whole thing. I think a lot of times with over drinking, overeating, whatever it may be, you kind of have that little anxiety, and you just want to fill it up, or you know what I mean. It's sort of, you just start reaching for something to fill the voids, or numb the pain, or whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I think you're right. I mean that
when it's usually food, because you're stuck there. It's like I remember like the first few meetings I went to, like first of all, like like in the treatment world, like November, December is like the biggest influx period.
Is it?
Because for sure. Because it's just a time of the year where you got like really bad seasonal part of the time of year, and then it's like family. Like people are like, I know a lot of people who are just like, they literally are either terrified or they just stay away from their families because it's too much of a trigger for whatever reason. It doesn't have to be like drinking or whatever. It can just be like, my family dynamics just flat out aren't healthy. And that has a huge effect. And right now it's like, listen, it's dark and it's so much easier to like, I'm a family function. I'm either going to walk away or I'm just going to go, hang out over here with my pecan pie and, silence everything, or I'll have athletes that are like, I'm definitely not going to name names here, but I've got athletes that are like, hey, listen, dude, I'm traveling for Christmas, in-laws, load me up. it's like not like tons of volume, but like I need to get away. Like I just need some time for me. I need to clear my brain, or there's like family dynamics that make them sad or anxious or brings up, not fond memories. And I think that's just like one of the biggest reasons why, it's either a very lonely time of year, it can be a very, anxiety-ridden time of year, and most type A athletes, they're already super hard on themselves. And so when they let something like that, which is totally normal, affect them, then they beat themselves up like they're like it's a negative against them. Like, I can't believe I'm letting my family get to me, or I can't believe I'm missing workouts because of this, or I can't believe I ate that. It's like, listen, man, it's like, forgive yourself.
Yeah,
like,
that's the other part. Yeah.
It's all about like forgiving ourselves and doing our best to not feel guilty and to realize that things are okay, and just understanding, where things are, and that it's just all okay. And then like with family too, it's like it's okay to just hold your ground, and if you just gotta kind of make it through, or just do whatever the hell you want. Like Allie and I, have done that really well the last years, is like setting boundaries and sticking to them. Like, and we have our own little family too, but it's like we're gonna do what's best for us, and then the rest will be kind of be what it is.
What go into that a little bit more, will you? Like, so what kind of boundaries? I mean, luckily, I think my mom's the only person that listens to this podcast. But and I promise not to swear for the rest of it.
Yeah, that's right. But no, it's like and she has family in Huntsville, and I know they don't listen to this podcast or anything. But we've just like certain aspects of our family, like we just don't. We don't agree with a lot of things that that can be said or done. You know what it is? It's avoiding being around negative energy by choice, or things that we just don't disagree with. The things that we disagree with. And it's like, we like your family. It's like the difference in marrying someone and having a kid. Like, marrying someone is, you chose to love them. You have a kid and it's just like a no-brainer. They just come out and you're like, oh my God, that's the greatest thing ever. And family is so much, you're just in the family. You didn't necessarily choose them, and so for us, it's just like we may or may not do certain things with our family over the holidays because we want we're also like very careful about surrounding Hayden with positive and outgoing and loving people and just straight up conversations. And so for us, it's more about like, if we hear something that we don't like, then we're just going to get up and leave. Like there, it's a like there's tolerating things, and then there's just like and then there's accepting it by not doing something different. And that's just kind of where we are in terms of it, really just everything and people in general. It's just like, you don't have to just sit idly by and listen to something, whether it's about, it could be anything. But with our family, it's just like, some things you're going to tolerate for a little bit, but it doesn't mean you have to just totally accept that, and that's where you are.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, listen, like I'm sorry you don't like that we're not coming over for this or doing this, but like, we have our own family. This is Hayden's first, like, Christmas where he'll even like remotely understand what's going on. And so we're going to do our own thing. Like, we're starting our own family and our own traditions. And just because in the past we've decided to accept or tolerate X, Y, and Z, doesn't mean that we're just concreted into having to do that for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. I think a lot of us go into holiday gatherings and things like that with predetermined expectations. And I know that when I go there and expect certain relatives or extended family or whatever to be a certain way, and the minute I see them being a certain way, then I start putting on the defensive, or I'm like, there it is, there it comes, there it goes. And yep. I mean, and it's kind of like, sometimes I can look at that and just laugh it off, but other times, and I think that's sort of the thing, is like the longer we let stuff fester and burn and build, and rather than just kind of going into it with a free and open mind, it doesn't matter then, as much, because you've got that, it's sort of like, oh boy, I know last time this is what happened, and I'm sure it's going to happen again, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, it's, I guess in a way, it's almost like going into a race with all kinds of predetermined expectations. It's just like, you got to go in there with an open mind and an open body and an open flow, and just let it come to you. Yep. Instead of reacting to everything, and overreacting, I should say. So,
well, and it's more like the more you look for something negative or positive to happen, the more, like, at least for negative, the more likely it is for you to find it, even if it's natural, unnatural.
Oh,
like,
dude. Oh,
like
yeah.
I totally expect my uncle just to be a unapologetic, depressed, passive-aggressive racist.
Yeah.
And then you like hang out near him, or you anticipate, or you almost like coax him into saying it, and then you're like, see, told you so.
Yeah.
As soon as we got there, I told you it was going to be this. Mm-hmm. And, or it's the same thing. Like you said about races, like even if it does happen, you're like, it wasn't like a surprise, or it just happened, organically. It was all like forced. It's just like there's a lot to be, said for, just like, listen, things are gonna happen, good, bad, positive, negative, that I'm gonna like and I'm not gonna like, but I'm not gonna go looking for them. I'm just gonna do my thing and hang in this little pocket and know that what I'm doing is good. And I found that if you do that, then it almost cancels out the noise, because you're only really concerned with the noise that you're putting out. And if you're only concerned with the noise that you're putting out, then it tends to drown out any other negative noise that may be around you. And that goes for anything. Right.
Yeah. So I know you've been in a groove lately, and right? Are you still in a groove? Last time I saw you, you were like, you felt like you were just right where you need to be.
Still there.
Or even better.
I think, I think it's...
Are you going to forgive yourself in a sense and give yourself a few days off over the holidays? You can just...
Here's the thing, is I don't really need any.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and this, like, I'm not doing anything catastrophic. I'm, or extraordinary, really. But this is the most consistent I've ever been. And I'm concreting and making a habit of making good, committed, smart choices. And, that may end up leading to a day off, and I'm sure it will. But I'll know when that time comes, and I'll be okay with it. And I'll be more okay with it when it comes because I'll know it's the right time versus just using that as an excuse for a day where, I just don't feel like it. But why is it that I don't feel like it? Like sometimes we fail to ask ourselves more questions. Like, I just don't feel like it today. Okay, well, can you explain that a little bit more? Why didn't you feel like it?
Right.
Oh, well, I can't do the whole thing, or I know I won't be fast, or I'm just too exhausted, or X, Y, and Z. It's all right. Well, why? It's like keep asking, and then you figure out an answer, and then you're like, okay, well, I wonder if I convince myself too early that I can't. Because I've seen so many athletes, and I've done this before in the past too. Everybody has. Like, you wake up and you start to have a bad day, and you just make the day a bad day instead of just realizing it might just be a fleeting moment. Or you woke up at 6 and you slept in, and you're like, oh, not going to get my run in today. And you're like, you've got like 14 more hours before.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
But we do that all the time. It's like, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow, and like I'll just move it. But it's not so much the completion or not completion. It's why you chose to do it or why you chose not to. And I had a little discussion yesterday with one of my athletes she was like, hey, I'm probably not going to be able to get in this tomorrow because I've got a long work day and this, and can you move it? And I said no. I said, it's not my job to move things so you automatically have a green week. It's to understand, what kind of, training load you can fit in with your schedule and with life and how consecutive weeks it can be. And so I got a loss, was reviewing Training Peaks this morning, and it popped up, it was like, hey, I got it in. Ha ha ha. Sometimes that you can be a real ass, but I still like you. And I was like, but that's it. It's always about like asking yourself, why am I skipping it? Or then why did I choose to give it? Choose to just do it. Like for me, that was Saturday. Like Saturday, I rode my trainer for like an hour and a half, pretty hard. And then Allie was not feeling well and was just really under the weather Saturday. So I was trying to take Hayden as much as I could to kind of give her some rest. And so that meant doing my run later on in the day, like when it was super warm, pushing the stroller, and my legs are already tired. And would have been very easy for me to have been like, I just need to stay at home with Hayden and rest. And, Allie's sick, and so that's an excuse. But it wasn't. Instead of finding another excuse, I found another reason to go get it done. And so I packed up Hayden and I in the stroller. We drove, a half mile to the Greenway, and we went 50 minutes. And I mean, I'm super lucky because he absolutely loves being in the jogging stroller. Like he either looks around and like talks to other people that walk by, or he just like conks out and falls asleep. But it was just, and once I got there, I was like, man, I'm so glad I chose to do this.
Isn't that always the case?
It always happens. But again, like back to what you're saying, it's like, why are you putting it off? Why is it not good? And you may ask yourself these set of questions, but then you may come to the same realization. It is. I do need to take today. But you may come to the realization and think, okay, well, now that I've answered these questions or asked myself further, maybe I don't need to take the day.
Yeah.
And right now I'm just finding more reasons to do things than I am to not. And that's really as simple as it is.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're, with the whole groove thing, I mean, to me, in a way, sometimes I try to simplify it down to like, how can I have just a little bit more energy tomorrow? And like in some ways with, like, for example, since I've been doing yoga for the last week now, or 7 or 8 days, I've noticed something about myself, and we talk about, obviously hydration on the top level a lot, and how to, you got to drink a lot on the bike or whatever, just to kind of maintain. But I realize that just through doing these movements and my lack of flexibility and things like that, that I have a more of a concern on the deep hydration level and at the cellular level. And I talked about this before, and I know this kind of gets a little bit wanky for some people, but I know that, when you're born, you're 85% water, your body. And as you get to my age, you're like, 10% water. That's what I feel like,
Yeah.
But it's about like, a long-term hydration plan for me. And that's, for me, that always comes back to juicing and things like that are, loaded with, water, like cucumbers or what have you. I mean, some of the power foods. And, it's just like, because, 90% of the time is that people don't do stuff. It's just because they don't have the energy, right? Or they don't think they have the energy, or for some reason they're stuck in the moment and they can't get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And from a U2 lyric there. So it's like, I look at that as like, okay, there's just this natural tendency to want to be at the top of your game every day. And that's great, but I still think that with this idea in mind of just being a little bit better tomorrow and figuring out what you can do today to give yourself just a little bit more tomorrow. Mm-hmm. and that fixes your attitude, and you're in a great place and it's feeling good and everything like that, and you must be doing it right, not overdoing it, just doing it. If you feel good today, like you feel like you got something in you, you go a little bit harder. If you don't overextend yourself and wipe out the next 3 days and then go to Christmas and eat 80 plates of food,
Mm-hmm.
and turn into a sloth, then all of a sudden 2 weeks are gone and you got to suck it up and, hit Bally's on the first of the year.
Exactly.
And then you just, and then that never gets easy either. So the incremental, slow burn,
it's
today.
Yeah, but it's also knowing that that slow burn is like think of it this way, like, and you and I always talk about, on and off the podcast, always about, the benefits of the slow burn, and then we talk about small ball, and then I also talk about, like, during the race season, like, burning your matches.
Mm-hmm.
And when don't burn your matches in training, and you only have 1 or 2 matches to burn each year. And for those of you that are either just listening or sometimes I forget people listen out of order, or we've had so many podcasts that we probably forget, is just that, like, when I say burning a match, I mean, like, there's really only like 1 to max of 3 times throughout the course of the year, and especially depending on your experience and fitness level, that you can just really, really, really dig deep and dig yourself a hole and just light that match and burn it before you end up getting to a point to where you keep lighting and lighting. Like, for people who race all the time, they light, and they keep just lighting a burnt match, and eventually it's just going to burn all the way down to nothing, and you're going to burn your fingers. But the way I see this time of year is, at some point in a later date in 2018, once, twice, maximum 3 times, I'm not going to want to just have a match. I'm going to want to have this huge, gigantic, insanely large bonfire. So each day, what I'm doing is I'm walking out into the woods, I'm grabbing a log or a stick or a twig or a piece of lumber, and I'm walking it back to this place, and I'm just stockpiling. And each day I go out there, no matter if it's the smallest twig, or you went out there and had an insanely great workout and you chopped down a whole tree and you drag it back and you start to pile it up. That's all I'm doing right now, is piling up. And while it may seem difficult some days to look at my pile and think, man, I want to light that, or man, the day that I'm gonna light that's gonna seem so far off.
Yeah.
Like, the bigger it gets, the more confident and the more motivated and the more committed I get. It's just, and like, man, because like, but once I get there, I'm gonna light that flame, and it's gonna erupt ferociously. And so that's what gets me out the door. But I'm also committed to, like, to doing it every day. But I've been doing it here for the last, like, month or two straight, and I'm seeing a little bit of gains here and there. But it's just like, it's knowing that I'm stacking, and I'm stacking these limbs for a purpose. And the more I stack now, the less rushed I'll feel later. Because I can just keep going into the woods for one, instead of February, March hitting, and now I feel like I got to take 2, 3, 4 trips a day, and I've always got to cut down the biggest piece of lumber. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's the ultimate planning and preparation analogy.
Yeah, and we love analogies.
Yeah, we do.
I do, at least. But it's what it's about, and it doesn't have to be, it's right now is the time of year where your workouts aren't fancy.
Yeah.
But it's like you're building the base to make things really, really freaking spectacular later on in the year.
Yeah.
Or you're just going into the woods and it doesn't even matter if you come back like 3 weeks straight with just a small twig. You're still ahead of the game. You're always going to be ahead of the game.
Yeah.
And you're at least going out there and trying to get some lumber and trying to, generate as big a pile as possible. Or, like right now, like I know that from the friends I've had and been around who like do bonfires, they put all their little bitty twigs underneath, little brush, little leaves and small twigs and things that'll erupt really, really quick, mm-hmm. to kind of help really start the fire. The kindle. This time of year is the kindle. And then later on in the years, when you start to pile on the big pieces, that'll just make it just light up and just burn for as long as you want it to.
Let me ask you this.
Yep.
With regard to, maybe throwing some kindling in there, when you reflect, say, on a race, like an Ironman, mm-hmm. now, something you've done in the past, and then you think about it in terms of now, and do you can you pinpoint things, or how often do you do that, where you'll look at that and go, oh man, like when I was swimming, I this happened, or when I was on the bike, and this is where I was struggling, and this is where I kind of lost my way or whatever, and then take those instances and actually work on them right now. And it's not, I know you do that, but
like we talked about in the last podcast about like working on your weaknesses or your or fine tuning things, or like in that aspect.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I think of it like, for me, obviously one of my big things is on the run, my hamstrings and things like that. So that's why I'm actually spending a lot of time with this yoga stuff and strength core kind of deal. And I would never want to push it to that same feeling that you might have at the end of an Ironman or something like that. But how do you, just practicing for those challenges and struggles and things like that. Yeah, kind of like we were talking about, I guess, but...
Well, I guess, like, for me right now, the biggest thing I'm trying to work on is working on figuring out ways to give myself more reasons versus more excuses.
Okay.
So for me, like right now, it's about consistency, and I'm working on things on my swim, and I'm building foundation for, the run. But from breaking down, looking at things like, man, like I look back at my last, few years here and there, and like, what would I change? Okay, I still had a pretty good result, but what did I really do? I'd give up a day, or I would just, pass. Or I would make an excuse. Or I'm like, yeah, but I can't do today.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just move it off, and I'll just change things around. And so for me right now, it's more learning about myself, about why I can figure out, but not I don't say give in, not retreat back to old habits that I know I can change, and I know if I change them will do nothing but benefit me in the future. And so they may not be technical skills, but it's more of I guess it's more challenging my habits and my commitment. And like I said, I'm not doing anything like insane. Like I'm not doing these like, 9, 10 plus mile runs. Like I'm doing like 10, 12 hours a week, and that's it. But I'm just being consistent. And if I can do like an hour and a half a day, I mean, for me, right, that's it. Like if I can just do an hour and a half a day right now, every day of the week, that's going to put me to 10, 11 hours.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That's
and
it.
like I can make time to do that. And if I can make time to do it now, then it'll be easier for me in the future to make time as well, because I've spent all year, making it happen and giving myself reasons. And then what I'll also feel in return is not that sense of impulse or urgency to fit it in or force it, because I've got the base, I've got the foundation. And so for me, that's what this time of year is. And it's showing myself that I can be committed, and I can make time, and I can find a way. And then just remembering why I chose it and being in a good space, to understand exactly why I'm choosing to do what I'm choosing to do right now.
Yeah.
And being happy with that choice.
I know you well enough to know that you buy into that consistency principle, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kidding. So it's finding time, right? And that's another thing about the holidays. It's like, we're busy, we're running around. Man, how many times have you been at the holidays and everybody's like, I'm bored, maybe watch football. There's time. There's going to be time to make that hour, right? To squeeze your hour in, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Playing, Cards Against Humanity or whatever.
Cards Against Humanity. Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Or Monopoly. You could fit it, like in the middle of your Monopoly game, just go out for a nice little walk in the snow.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the old, do some sledding.
Seriously.
Walk up and down, get it done. I don't know. So it's early December, and pretty soon we're going to be spinning that corner. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up, man.
We do. A lot of cool stuff on deck.
Yeah.
On the runway, about to take flight.
For sure. We've got camps. How are those camps looking? Are they filling up?
Camps, yes. We still have some availability in April and August. June is jammed. April, 2 slots. August, 7 to 8 slots, but June is full. And then our swim camps are filling up too. So we've had a lot of interest here lately about swim camps. So if you have any interest about anything camp related, coaching, swim analysis, gear, our other podcasts, or the blog, you can always go to our one-stop shop, which is crushingiron.com.
Yeah, now listen, these camps, if you're out there, like, here's a great opportunity if you're, reasonably close to Nashville, or even if you're not, whatever, just to have an alternative little vacation that's something a little bit different. And it's not just going out of town and laying around on the beach. It's meeting a lot of cool people. It's a great city. There's a lot of stuff going on. And especially like that August camp, that thing is specifically timed for some of those late season Ironman. And it's going to give you, we've seen it already firsthand, that it gives people so much confidence going into their race. If you have doubts about certain things, you come here, you'll learn a lot of stuff. You'll be doing some things that are challenging that will give you unbelievable boost in confidence as you go into that late season race, whether it be Wisconsin, Chattanooga, Louisville, whatever. It's a good one.
Yeah, it's they're all very, like, they're all timed great for specific things. Like for me, like I think April is easily the like starting in April, May, June, or for any time like in the beginning of the season, is like the best time to start, just because a lot of people try to do them in like January, February, and like March is a really popular month to like do a training camp. But for me, the reason like we didn't pick one is because the weather's still a little bit iffy here. But like usually you have to retreat home and it's still too cold. Like you can't reap the benefit. Like you don't want to go to a training camp in like January, February, March and put in like these monster hours, and then come back and be like, oh shit, I'm back to like stuck on the trainer and the treadmill and snow and ice and freezing cold. Like if you live in a warm climate year round, great, but you also want to have a race kind of coming up. You go do one in like one of our April camps, or like or one of the swim camps. Bam, you learn a bunch of stuff, then you get to go home and have a great fitness boost and apply it to a race or another big training block, or apply the things you learned the rest of the year, because you're already in that groove. And the same thing with like August. Like you don't want to go to a real early season camp if your focus is way, way, way down the road, like September, October, November. Because then you're probably not in your real monster build phase yet. And so they're timed really, really well. In Nashville, we have some of the best training resources, period, in my opinion, for any type of race. And then if you want to get down and dirty and get faster, especially in June and August, when it's hot as you know what here in Nashville, hills, open water, heat, you're looking at some awesome fitness gains. And then most importantly, you're going to be training with at least 16 to 18 other just super awesome people that you probably never met before. You have met online or via Facebook. They're totally committed, and you're going to leave with good friends that you can communicate with and talk to and have as accountability. And the biggest thing that I've heard from other athletes, and not just from what they've learned and seeing the fitness gains, but it's also not feeling alone anymore, not feeling isolated. Not just be not like they're in this. They're in this together with other people, and then once you can kind of see them and be a part of it when they do it, then then that's what really makes things click.
Yeah, it's very cool. I mean, I can't even tell you.
It's my favorite thing for us to do.
Yeah, it's great meeting people. I put. I mean, I don't know exactly where I am as far as housing people, but sometimes I have room to house people if they want to just stay here. And I've made some great friends last year through the camp. And like you said, the venue here is great. I think that the long ride in its own way is like probably one of the best things you can do for your Ironman race. It's like a long ride on a Natchez Trace, and we're fortunate to be able to go out there whenever we want, but it is like one of the greatest it's got to be one of the greatest places to ride in the country, really.
Oh, for sure.
It's super hilly. It's low traffic, beautiful, and there's rest stops. I mean, it's all right there. And then what you do with and also the swim portion has become probably the favorite part for everybody because of what you go through as far as the swim instruction and the open water training and the confidence people build in the open water. So
yeah,
that's great. And we do some running and some beautiful spots. So it's all good, man.
All flat running, no hills.
Except for one little section.
Yeah, except for a couple of them. But
we know hills are king, man.
I know.
Hills are king.
Hills are king. No, but it is a great time, and if you're worried, or if you want any more info on them or anything, you can always email me at c26coach@gmail.com, or especially if for whatever reason, if you feel like you're not going to be able to quote unquote, keep up, or you're going to hold people back, do not feel that way.
No.
The way we have camp structured, the way we have it outlined, it is very much a no man or woman gets left behind thing, and it's because of how we structure it and where we do things and how things are laid out. So we have people on every end of the spectrum. So if you need some questions answered, reach out and don't feel like you can't come. Find a way to come.
Yep. On crushingiron.com, there's a camps tab, You can see some videos and kind of some of the scenery that we took in last year. We have a closed group. If you're not in there on Facebook, you just search Crushing Iron Group and send a request, and we'll let you in. We've started a supplementary podcast called the C26 Squadcast, where we interview active athletes, and that's really touched a lot of people. I think a lot of people like that, man. Mm-hmm. I created a tab on our website too that's called Athletes, and I put I made a little short video, kind of pulled excerpts from one of the podcasts and put it to video, and you can kind of check that out and see some of our athlete stories that way. We're going to be doing more of that. What else? Yeah, always coaching. If you're interested in coaching, there's a tab on our website for that as well. It has pricing information. All that stuff is there. It's transparent like water.
Like water.
The podcast is like water.
Yep. Hey, that's what Bruce Lee always said. If you're going to be anything, be like water.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
I think I'm going to be like water today.
Go do it, man. Go be like water.
All right. Anything else, man?
That's it, man. That's all I got.
Really? Nothing's like nagging at you that you got to get out there?
Nothing today.
Okay. We will catch you next time. Hopefully I have a Squadcast this week.
Yep, that's the goal. That's the plan. We'll do our best.
It's one of the goals. We're taking one step out the door. We're leaning against that locked door and hoping the Squadcast comes out.
That's it, man.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
All right, man.
We'll catch you later.
See you.